Today, I want to talk about Jugaad. Jugaad is a Hindi colloquial word which means an improvised solution to a challenge, usually in the face of scarcity of resources. It is a frugal, flexible, inclusive approach to innovation, one that creates solutions that are creative but unsophisticated, makeshift but always good enough. Simply put, Jugaad is doing more with less. Let me give you an example. 7 years ago, I moved back to India after completing my education in the US to join my family business. I had had internships in the US, 2 college degrees in the US, so I had a certain Western notion of how businesses work, systems work. When I joined my family business, I had this strong urge to make everything systematic, to install processes. I was very keen to purchase an expensive ERP software to help us through that process, which our company at that point could not afford. I was really, I thought that this was, so frustrated, this is not the way going forward. I wanted to revamp, I wanted to take control, but I didn't have the resources. My father stepped in. He suggested that I could achieve most of what I wanted in terms of installing these processes, training our staff, by using what we already had in place, an accounting package. And I looked at him. I thought, an accounting package to do what an ERP does? And believe it or not, even till today, over the last 7 years, our accounting package has been transformed into a perfect ERP solution for our company. Using inputs from our staff, using certain makeshift solutions, adding certain manual processes, some paper-driven trails, even relying on text messaging and online softwares, online tools that are free, we were able to complete our circle of reporting data, recording various kinds of information. So basically, what I witnessed the first year in my business was Jugaad at play. And I was lucky that my father was there to help me through this process. My father does not have any professional education degree. In fact, he has not even got any work experience outside of the businesses he founded. However, I discovered he's a mechanical and an electrical engineer, a plumber, an electrician, a mason, a painter, a business leader, an orator, a believer, a hustler, all because he graduated from what we call the University of Life. And what he proudly says, that he was valedictorian with a PhD in Jugaad. So that helped me really feel comfortable by using Jugaad at work, because the Western schools of management often dismiss family businesses in India as relying too much on Jugaad, as Jugaad being an approach that is a poor man's approach, unprofessional approach. But today, I want to deconstruct Jugaad by using the acronym itself to highlight to you how so many elements of Jugaad actually make for great learnings for entrepreneurs of the future in various settings outside of my own family business. The J in Jugaad stands, as I think, for juggling, which is having to wear multiple hats at the same time as an entrepreneur. The good news is that all of us here have graduated from a liberal arts education. You may not realize it so immediately, but it's ingrained in the way that we think. We can go through various disciplines, collate learning from various schools of thought, and not even know that we are doing it. And that juggling really makes us good at Jugaad, because Jugaad is about drawing on lessons from fields that you may think are completely unrelated to one another. And Jugaad tells us that when we are juggling between these things and we don't succeed all the time, it is okay to fail. But it is not okay to stop. You have to keep rolling, you have to keep moving, you have to keep juggling. And that is the important thing that we need to remember about the J of Jugaad. The U in Jugaad stands for deep understanding. It's about asking all possible questions about your passion, about the field of interest, about what you want to do. Because in the questions, in the details, that is where the opportunity lies. I was very keen as a young business owner to grow sales in our business. We had various meetings, various discussions about what our sales strategy should look like. All of these discussions were internal. It was between me and my sales team. And sure, we had interactions with our clients, but not enough. Real deep understanding, as I realize now, comes from when you throw yourself out there in the field and really go as deep as possible. And that is also where the element of wondering comes into place. How good are you at displacing yourself physically, putting yourself out there in situations which may not be so comfortable, and asking the questions and trying to get the answers? I'll give you an example of the youth from my business. We were trying to increase our sales. We make steel structures that we sell to contractors who install them for heavy infrastructure in India. This is primarily used to build bridges, factory sheds, industrial plants, airports. While we were keen on supporting the contractors who were buying our steel, we really didn't know what we could do outside of pricing to increase the volumes that they were picking up from us. However, once this contractor came into our office, and he told us that while he was sophisticated enough to understand what his end client needed, what kind of buildings he wanted to construct, he didn't have a setup large enough to put together a dossier with all the technical information to present to the client, which would include largely a bill of quantities. And I thought to myself, for us to generate a bill of quantities in our company with our detailing and engineering division was a piece of cake. We just never thought of doing that. So we launched a system where every subcontractor that was buying our steel would get free service of these bill of quantities. And we were amazed by the results. Of course, our sales grew tremendously in the last few years, but also the confidence of our contractors grew in us that we were willing to do this for free. We would have spent all these years doing research surveys and trying to figure out how to grow our sales, but just with this interaction with the contractors led us to this brilliant sales strategy. So I want to encourage you all again to go deep into the topic, because what we learn by asking the right questions can help us find solutions we never thought were out there. The G in Jugaad requires guts. There's a great book written called Heart, Smarts, Guts, and Luck, and it helps you come up with a score of where you stand, because the authors believe that these 4 characteristics form the DNA of a successful entrepreneur. And I greatly enjoyed reading this book because it emphasizes skills that usually business schools or business owners don't realize that are important for setting up a big enterprise. And it really tells you to follow your heart, because so many times the feeling you get inside in the time you're making a decision in the face of a challenge, you cannot explain to others, and it may seem illogical to yourself, and even more illogical if you articulate it verbally. But it says that if there is something inside you that is telling you to go ahead and follow your dream or follow that thing or make that decision, go right ahead, because you will never get that opportunity again. And even if you fail, you will never get the opportunity to learn what you learned from that failure again. So the guts is very important in Jugaad, because you're making decisions in the face of adversity. You're trying to make things work against all odds. And that is very crucial, that you follow your gut feeling. Also, what guts tells us is don't reinvent the wheel. It is not necessary all the time. Focus on your strengths. There's also a great book written about this called Strengths Finder 2.0. I encourage you to take a test in that book, because at the end of it, you come up with the characteristics that you are very good at already. And if you focus on those characteristics alone, you will realize that you can move faster in whatever dream, whatever pursuit you are choosing. So the guts is very important in entrepreneurship. The first A in Jugaad, I would like to say, stands for adequate armor, to be prepared. And by this, I don't mean to have a backup plan. For example, if you choose to become a doctor, you're a pre-med student, you're not doing so well, it's not working out, you scrap that and you become an engineer. No. Having a backup plan means to take on adaptive planning. If you have a plan, you should know all the things that may or may not work about it. And if the things that you think are not going to work, you should have a backup plan to tweak them. So adaptive planning would mean having a plan that's version A, 8.1, 8.2. So several versions of the same plan so that you can remain in beta version, so that you can keep on trying, keep on testing new things, and moving forward. There's a very interesting example from a company in India. In India, we have a big matrimony market because in India, we are obsessed with marrying and having arranged marriages look like chosen independent love marriages. So Bharat Matrimony is one of the largest portals. It's like your Match.com where people meet people. So Bharat Matrimony was doing really well online and they wanted to go offline. So they set up these offline booths in malls where parents and young people could come in, sign up, register, fill up their profile, and then they would match you with someone. While their online portfolio was a big success, offline, they were a huge failure. And actually, the founder of Bharat Matrimony is a good friend of mine. He's working very hard right now to find me a match. Online, I hope. But so what he realized that went wrong with his offline model was that there was no element of anonymity, no element of privacy. And that was not working out well in India because youngsters were uncomfortable. They didn't want to go to a booth in a mall. So he tweaked that model to have private booths, sessions where you could set up a meeting where it did not feel like you were in such a public space, but you were still able to go meet somebody personally to discuss the possibilities of filling out a profile and being set up with someone if you didn't have access to the computer or the internet. So while he had already failed at the plan, he was still willing to go back and relaunch it with a slightly tweaked version of the same plan because he knew if there was something that didn't work, he could do 8.1, 8.2, 8.3. So that kind of beta version helped him to go right back in. So that's very important. Having the right armor, having the right kind of backup, knowing if certain strategies fail, you don't have to give up altogether. You can tweak them and go back right in. The second A in Jugaad is artistic manipulation. This is actually my personal favorite because in a family business, you are always manipulating. You're manipulating between the role of a business leader, a boss, a daughter, a sister, all kinds of things. And I have realized that instead of me giving out orders, having the buy-in of all the stakeholders is extremely important, especially from my staff, from my team members. And that can only come if I sell my idea. And I have to sell my ideas on a daily basis. I can't simply just tell them to do something. Because when I sell something, I'm convincing them of all the reasons, all the thought process that has gone behind that idea. I'm allowing them to give input so that the idea can be shaped or transformed. To tell them that this is not a hard and fast rule. When they say something, I'm listening to it and we're adapting to it. And also because sometimes you have to manipulate the way you say your idea so it resonates with the person sitting across from you. And that is very important. The way you think of something, that is not the way how everybody else thinks of it. So you have to continuously practice to say the same thing in different ways so that other people can come on board. And in a family business, sometimes artistic manipulation is very useful because while it may be your idea, it really works much better if your father or brother think it's their idea. So that is why I call manipulation artistic, because you have to tweak it so that you have their exact buy-in in the way you want it to. The D in Jugaad is the do-or-die spirit. While I'm not saying that being slow and steady is not important, but sometimes for large change to happen, the complacency level in an organization or even within yourself has to be very low. And you may want to do something, but you're waiting for the right opportunity. Something has to give you that jerk, that kick-starting moment. And that can happen if you can create a sense of urgency. And there's a great book about this too. But really what they're trying to say is in the face of urgency, the creativity level, the solutions that you come up with, you will be astounded at how great they are. Because at that moment, it's really a do-or-die situation. You have to make it happen. And the speed at which it happens cannot be accomplished in any other way. I want to give you an example again from our business about it. We are a steel manufacturing house. For many years, we thought that combining our mechanical skills as an engineering house with civil skills, which would mean to come and do all the flooring and civil footings for the buildings we execute, not just at the steel level, would enhance the scope of work we take on and grow our company. We talked about it endlessly as a family, endlessly as a business. We never got around to doing it. Until 2 years ago, when one of our clients, and it was a repeat client for us, in their new project said that they would only award the contract to a company that would do both the civil and the steel work together. And at that point, everything that we had planned had to be done overnight. We had to come up with a civil engineering team, a proposal, a plan to execute all of this overnight. And in the last 2 years, now we have an established civil engineering division. But the real Kickstarter, the real thing that led us to do it was an outside impetus. Sometimes you need the things to trigger you externally to happen because internally we are not able to push ourselves. So when that thing happens, recognize it and respond to it. That's very important. So Jugaad, for me, really embodies innovative entrepreneurship. It has all these great tools, and instead of dismissing it as a parochial, poor man's approach, I think it would be great if we could learn from it, reclaim it, and use all the various great elements it has. And it particularly relates with our theme today, because Jugaad can only work if we have displaced ourselves spatially, we have traveled, we have been in different situations, we have faced different challenges, because then in a situation where we have to come up with an innovative fix, we can draw on those experiences. And the good news is that by being here, by having all of these multidisciplinary international experiences, we are already placing ourselves at an advantageous situation. Another thing about Jugaad is temporal displacement. How deep can you go into the topic that you're interested in? How much can you go into the history of the nation or the region that you're interested in? And how can you draw all those lessons to have contemporary meaning? So both spatial wandering and temporal wandering is really what constitutes a good Jugaadu entrepreneur. I want to leave you with this thought. It's a quote from Hindi. It says, "Jin khoja tin paiya, gehre pani pet." Those who wander are lost, but only those who are lost can find.